Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Lorraine Garcia, Communication Manager and PIO for Coachella Valley Water District. And I'm really happy to see all of you here today to talk about one of the most important topics, which is water, and how we can save it, how we can be more water efficient. And we have some great speakers today, a vendor expo. I hope you got to talk to some of the vendors. You'll have an opportunity to do that later. We also had refreshments, and we'll have a lunch as well in the same area under the canopies. But first, we're going to talk about drought and water supply. And our first speaker is Scott Burritt. He's the Director of Service and Communication. And he joined the Coachella Valley Water District in 2013. He oversees most of the public-facing functions at CVWD, including government affairs, communication, conservation, customer service, revenue, and field services. So he oversees about 80 employees, so it's a big department. Scott has a broad experience in state and local government, including policy development and implementation, government and public affairs, and community engagement. And so please welcome Scott Burritt.
Oh. Can you hear me? I didn't know she was going to read it, otherwise I would have shortened it. So.
Actually, I didn't read the whole thing.
Oh, okay, good. So thank you all for being here today. I'm going to run through a slide deck pretty briefly, pretty quickly, and I think I could stop and talk about any one of them for a day. So I won't do that because, obvious reasons. Lorraine would kill me. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to talk about Coachella Valley Water Management. We were formed in 1918 to protect the local water resources. So that was a long time ago. In the 1920s, the whitewater recharge ponds were built, 100 years ago, to capture some of the storm runoff from the local mountains. We began receiving Colorado River water in 1949 for agricultural, and it was mainly to reduce our reliance on the aquifer and make sure our community was sustainable. But we were thinking about it that long ago, and that's what amazes me today. We began replenishing water at the imported water at the whitewater facility out in Palm Springs, the whitewater recharge facility, in 1973. And we adopted our water management plan, our first one, in 2002. So, I kind of feel like we probably adopted our first plan like in the 1920s, probably, but that was our first official plan. And we've been managing the resources, the water resources in the Coachella Valley for a long time, and we've been doing a really good job at it, I think. So this is our service area. From Mission, like parts of Desert Hot Springs, Cathedral City, all the way down to Salton City and Bombay Beach. So if you drive for an hour, it's 1,000 square miles. If you drive for an hour, you're still going to be in our service area, which is a really large area. These are our 7 areas of service. And, probably everybody in this room, you may not use all of them, but you used your customers for some of these services. You might use, and I know this is property managers and HOAs. There's some HOAs that receive agricultural water. Everybody receives domestic water, okay, except for you. I think you're from Desert Water Agency area, but that's okay. So almost everybody receives domestic water. We all benefit from the groundwater replenishment. Any imported water that we receive from the Colorado River and the State Water Project. We also do recycled water, about 12,000 acre feet a year. and we're expanding that system this year. Well, in the future, we've received grant funding from the federal government to almost double that capacity. We do stormwater protection across the big portions of the Coachella Valley. We're working on a big project right now in North India, which is about it's a big investment, one of the biggest investments we've made in stormwater protection. And then wastewater treatment and our water conservation programs like today. So the major sources of our water, when you turn on the tap at your home, you're receiving water from our aquifer. So it's our groundwater. When you irrigate, it's probably with groundwater if you're a private home. And we replenish that groundwater, we replenish the aquifer with natural inflows. So we're surrounded by mountains and we get water that runs down into the valley. And I suspect we're going to be getting a lot more this year since we have a lot of snow up there on the mountains and we've gotten a lot of rain. So we have natural inflows, but in order to make the Coachella Valley sustainable, they realized a long time ago that it was going to take more than really the small amount of water that we get from our natural inflow from the mountains. And that's why they entered into contracts and helped build the canal to bring Colorado River water to the Coachella Valley. And we're going to talk about these in a little bit more detail. Not too much. We might be here all day, and there's a lot of questions about the Colorado River right now. And the State Water Project. So those are our big imported water sources. And then again, we have recycled water. And hopefully we'll be able to produce about 20,000 acre feet, maybe 22,000 acre feet a year in recycled water. And HOAs, golf courses use that for their landscaping. The State Water Project, so the last 2 years were pretty grim in getting water from the State Water Project. So we were getting about 5% of our allocation the last 2 years. That was recently increased because of all the precipitation statewide. So now we're currently at 75% of our allocation. So I think the projection there is that just from that allocation, we'll be getting about 80,000 acre feet, but that may increase. We also get what's called surplus water, and that's water beyond our contracted amount, and we're receiving that right now. So this year is hopefully going to be a great year for receiving water on the State Water Project. We're one of 29 contractors. We entered into that contract for the State Water Project in 1963. And it's a big system. You can see on the map there, Lake Oroville at the northern part of the state, and it runs all the way down San Luis Reservoir. And it doesn't quite make it, the State Water Project canal system doesn't quite make it to the Coachella Valley. So we have an exchange agreement with Metropolitan Water District. And they send water the last, 100 miles or a few miles, but it would be very expensive to build that infrastructure. So in good years, like this year, we replenish a lot of water. And that helps us, it helps keep the aquifer and our community sustainable for the dry years and the drought. So, the last couple of years when we got 5% of our statewide allocation, our State Water Project allocation, we took more water out of the aquifer than we put in. And the goal this year is to put a lot more water in than we take out. So the Colorado River, you've been hearing a lot about that in the news this past year. And the problem with the Colorado River is is that the whole basin, the Colorado River Basin, has been in a drought for 20 years. And so, the time to act, there's coming a time to make some decisions, and the 7 states that share the Colorado River water are negotiating and meeting and talking along with the federal government, and coming up with proposals to leave water on the Colorado River or use less. So California voluntarily gave up 400,000 acre feet. That's our proposal out there. And there are plans in place, drought contingency plans in place, so that if we need to give up more water on the river, there's an orderly way to do that. And so, but 40 million people use that as drinking water, 5 million acres of farmland. The Colorado River is really important to the entire western United States. It also provides electricity through its hydropower plants. So everybody has an interest. The entire western United States, the entire United States has an interest in keeping the Colorado River sustainable and viable. So I have a short video that I'm going to play. I think I can just, we'll see how this.
More than a century ago, local residents voted in favor of forming Coachella Valley Water District 324 to 49 on January 9, 1918, to protect the valley's water resources. During this time, approximately 8,000 acres in the valley were being farmed, producing crop values in excess of $1 million. Farmers irrigated from wells which pulled water from the aquifer, causing the groundwater level to drop. Recognizing the need for an imported water supply, Coachella Valley Water District leaders embarked on an extensive 30-year quest to bring Colorado River water to the valley. In 1934, CVWD executed a contract with the United States Bureau of Reclamation to participate in the Boulder Canyon Project, which included the construction of Boulder Dam, now called Hoover Dam, the All-American Canal, and the Coachella branch of the All-American Canal. Progress was uncertain, with the canal construction halted during World War II. But Colorado River water began flowing onto farmland via the Coachella Canal in 1949. Today, more than 65,000 acres of farmland produce crop values in excess of $575 million. Without the canal, the Coachella Valley wouldn't be what it is today. Early water leaders continue to show visionary foresight in creating one of the most efficient agricultural irrigation delivery systems in the nation. CVWD has implemented these major actions to conserve Colorado River water. Investment in its 500-mile irrigation delivery system to minimize losses through the use of pipes and metering 100% of properties served. Lining of the Coachella Canal to save about 158,000 acre-feet of water from seeping into the ground. Conservation by customers is necessary to continue successful water management. About 60% of agricultural customers use drip irrigation, which allows crops to be irrigated efficiently. CVWD encourages all customers to use water efficiently by checking for leaks and applying for rebates. Visit cvwd.org/conservation for tips and rebate information.
That was the debut of the video. You're the first audience to see this, so I get the premiere.
Well done.
Thank you. Okay, so I think I can pick up here. So, a couple things in that video that I want to highlight, and one of them is, our canal system is lined, it's concrete lined, and that's important because as we cover in the video, it prevents seepage and water loss. But the other thing is that our properties, all the properties that use, or accounts that use Colorado River water, have meters. That's not the case everywhere. Some places they just have the water goes into an open ditch to get to a farm. Ours is a closed pipeline system. It's very efficient. It results in like 5% water loss, which is amazing even for domestic drinking water statistics across the state and across the country. So we're really proud of that. We're working with the golf industry to reduce water use, and we're working with that group right now to try to get federal grants so that we can reduce their water footprint across the valley. And we'll see how that endeavor goes. So you asked me a question earlier. What was your question? Are we still in a drought? Is California still in a drought? Okay, let's see a show of hands. How many of you think we're still in a drought? Okay, out of a drought? Okay, a couple. Okay, so when we first started talking about this event, that's what California, this is the U.S. Drought Monitor map for California. The dark red is exceptional drought. The brighter red is extreme drought, and severe, moderate, and abnormally dry. I apologize if that's so small you can't read it. But that's what California looked like in November. And this is what California looks like today. Well, okay, not today. It was March 28th. Sorry, So, and they release this every Thursday, so we're excited to see what it looks like next week. So if you're in the Central Valley and your property is underwater, you're probably saying we're out of the drought. And for the Central Valley and the Sierras, you can see that that's the case. There's no drought in the Central Valley, but there's a lot of places in California that are still experiencing drought. And you know, we're right there by the Salton Sea, so we're still in drought situation between abnormally dry and a moderate drought. But it's quite a difference, isn't it? Okay, so you answered California. How about and by the way, Adam McWay, our conservation manager, is going to talk a little bit more about the California drought and the governor's declarations and executive orders issued recently. So there's going to be drilling down a little bit more into the technical stuff later. But how about the Western United States? Who thinks we're in a drought in the Western United States?
Yes.
Who thinks we're out of the drought? Okay. So I don't have a comparison. But this is as of March 28th, so I figured maybe nobody would throw tomatoes. And so, you know, this is the Colorado River, and you can see that, you know, the southeastern portion of California, Nevada, Utah, and parts of Colorado are still in drought condition. And, you know, that's the challenge. The Rockies and the whole Colorado River Basin just hasn't gotten as much precipitation as we have in the Sierras. They'll probably say we stole all their snow, but don't listen to it. So the answer is no. We're still in the Western United States. We're still in a drought. It's looking a lot better. It's looking a lot better, but we're still not out of the woods. How about this? Is the Coachella Valley still in a drought? Okay. No? Okay, the Coachella Valley is always in a drought. We get like if we didn't have all of these imported water sources, none of us would live here. We would be, you know, we wouldn't be here. So we get like 3 or 4 inches of rain a year, you know, in a typical year. If we're lucky, it doesn't come all in like a day, but we've seen a lot of rain in one day. So, you know, we're always in a drought. And that's why, we have to, as a community, there's property managers here, there's board members and landscape committee members from HOAs. And I think it's important for all of us to think about how to make the Coachella Valley sustainable for the long term and how to make conservation a way of life. So, yeah, we're always in a drought. And even if we're out of a drought, the truth is we have to start preparing for the next one. Sorry, I was getting kind of dry. We have to start preparing our communities. There's going to be a lot of challenges. There's, we don't know when the next drought's going to be. And just, I know it's difficult conversations with your community members, with your customers or clients. It's difficult in landscape committees, as we were talking about. And, I think we need to have those difficult conversations. And I know some HOAs, even small ones with 40 residents, it's taking them years to convince people to do away with some of the turf. So why is it important? There's changing weather patterns. We've seen it. We've been in a drought for 3 years. Some have said it was the most extreme drought California's seen in 1,200 years. And now all of a sudden we get atmospheric rivers that just inundate the state and flood part of the Central Valley. So it's kind of weather whiplash. I've heard that on the news. And, the weather is changing. And, from an infrastructure perspective across the state, we have to be a little bit more prepared and capture more of that runoff for water needs. There's also future regulatory and legal mandates. So there's a Sustainable Groundwater Management Act that is in effect, and that kind of sets a limit on how low water agencies or how low aquifers can be drawn down before the state steps in with some regulatory action. So that's something we need to be cognizant of. We're not near that, so don't take that away from this at all. And there's also making conservation California way of life regulations that are winding their way through the State Water Resource Control Board. And these regulations are going to govern and kind of limit, not so much limit, but maybe govern is a better word, but nobody's going to come to your house and tell you you're using too much when you flush the toilet, but but those regulations are going to kind of set some thresholds on indoor use, and outdoor water standards are going to change for water agencies across the state. And we do all this in the Coachella Valley because we want this to be a sustainable place. We have economic development. We have people moving here since the pandemic. We've installed a lot more meters. We've had a lot of more people coming to the Coachella Valley to live full time. And people are gonna have families are being raised here, and they're gonna stay here. So I think we need to make sure our Coachella Valley is sustainable for future generations. So these are some of the conservation actions we've done over the last few years. The Mid-Valley Pipeline, that was really designed to get people off groundwater pumping. And I think that's been a very successful initiative. If you've noticed, there was construction for a long time down Hoveley. We take the blame. We were putting in a non-potable pipeline system, and I apologize for the inconvenience. But that's really helps the mid part of the valley because it means less people are pumping water from the aquifer. It means we're going to prevent subsidence where the ground kind of lowers and causes infrastructure problems or cracked foundations and all sorts of issues at homes. We've increased the use of recycled water, as I mentioned. We do ground replenishment at 3 locations. We have a landscape ordinance that's made huge impacts since it was adopted. It's probably the biggest thing. If you look at, for example, the new Del Webb community on Dinah Shore, you'll see that that's a lot more water efficient than some of the older communities that we've had established. So that landscape ordinance has really had a major impact. We have budget-based tiered rates. Okay, you might hear, did I hear, hey, that's my department. So the good news, okay, I can take the boo, but the good news is that you're not going to see drought penalties on your April bill because our board of directors provided staff with direction to get rid of the drought penalties. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this up in 1 second. And then we provide incentives, and this past year we've had great partnerships with the local cities. Future of water, we're going to see less green. There's a non-functional turf ban that the state has enacted as an emergency regulation. We expect that to stick around. Legislation has been introduced to make that a permanent feature of water policy in California. Like I mentioned, greater indoor water efficiency. And we really have to change our mindset and our neighbors' mindset about the Coachella Valley, because we don't all need to have wall-to-wall turf in our communities and at home. And the other future is laws and regulations. Drought is one challenge that we face with our water supply, but it could be that there's a court ruling or some new regulation that limits how much water we could bring from the Colorado River, or perfect timing, I'm done. So yeah, and that's that was my hook. Did you see how he did that? He was smooth. So I'm sorry, you had a question.
I was curious, that project in Rancho Mirage.
Cotino, the Disney project.
Yeah, how is that impacting?
So that's yeah, absolutely. So she wanted to know how Cotino, the Disney project in Rancho Mirage, is impacting our community. And the truth is, that's a big project. Under state law and under our landscape ordinance, properties have a maximum amount of water that they can use on their projects for a major new development. And so in order to have a lagoon or the kind of water features that they're proposing, they're going to be very desert landscaping, because there's not going to be a lot of grass surrounding the lagoon. Let's put it that way. Here, let me. That's okay, I don't. Is it on?
Because you're on the same channel.
Oh. Go ahead, I'll repeat it.
Well, I heard that the river took more water.
Heard they were getting more wells than they should. I'm not aware of that. They if they have wells, and any well owner, and probably the property management companies know this, any well owner who uses over a certain threshold, it's 25 acre feet, have to pay charges to us. And so they may use more water. I don't know how much water they're using, but during construction, some projects can use more water as they develop. But that's probably the case for where everybody in this room lives. At some point, their project was developed and their home was developed. So anyway, I think I'm about to get the hook. We have another speaker right after this. I'm going to be available all day to to answer questions, and if you like, we could. So if you have follow-up, you can grab me. But also, if it would be helpful, we could do something at the end of the day, and just tell me. We could have a Q&A at the end of the day for as long as you want.